At precisely 2:47 p.m., Dolores Finch stood on my front lawn in a neon green tracksuit, holding a megaphone and shouting, "You have 72 hours to dismantle this unauthorized vegetation or the neighborhood watch will bring in a backhoe." She was talking about my community garden, the same one I'd spent 6 months building, the same one feeding half the block. By 5 p.m., her prized rose bushes were compost. Her book club was in chaos, and she was clutching her laminated neighborhood watch handbook like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. Let me rewind, shall we? My name is Clara Thorne. I'm a 38-year-old urban farmer with a knack for growing heirloom tomatoes and a deep-seated hatred for busybodies. I live in Willow Creek, a suburban sprawl where every lawn looks like it was mowed with a ruler and every mailbox is painted eggshell white. The air smells like fresh-cut grass and conformity. Or at least it did until Dolores Finch decided she was the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood aesthetics. I'd inherited a modest bungalow from my aunt, a free-spirited botanist who once grew cannabis in her basement for research. The house came with a half-acre backyard, perfect for my dream, a community garden where neighbors could grow their own food, swap recipes, and maybe stop glaring at each other over picket fences. Enter Dolores Finch, president of the Willow Creek Neighborhood Watch and professional meddler. Picture a woman who alphabetizes her spice rack and carries a pocket-sized level to check the alignment of welcome mats. She's a retired librarian with a perm so tight it could double as a helmet, and a clipboard she treats like a scepter. Her mission to enforce neighborhood harmony by ensuring every blade of grass, every porch light, and every dog bark complies with her 47-page Neighborhood Watch Code of Conduct. She drives a powder blue Prius with a bumper sticker that says, "Willow Creek, where standards bloom." I'm not kidding. The trouble started when I turned my backyard into a community garden. I'd spent months planning it, raised beds for zucchini, trellises for snap peas, a compost bin that could handle a small army's worth of coffee grounds. I invited neighbors to join, and soon we had a crew, Mr. Patel with his cilantro obsession, Jenny from across the street with her kale experiments, and even old Mr. Hensley, who grew the world's ugliest carrots but swore they tasted like victory. The garden was a hit. We had potlucks, kids running through sprinklers, and a group chat called Veggie Vibes that was 90% memes about zucchini overpopulation. Dolores, however, saw the garden as a personal affront. She showed up the day we broke ground, uninvited, with a tape measure and a scowl. "This violates Section 3.7 of the Neighborhood Watch Code," she declared, pointing at my compost bin like it was a nuclear warhead. "Organic waste attracts pests and lowers curb appeal." I offered her a cherry tomato. She swatted it away like it was a wasp. "Welcome to the garden," I said, smiling through gritted teeth. She didn't catch the irony. It started small, a citation taped to my mailbox for excessive greenery. The paper was scented with lavender, because of course it was. Then a second one for unapproved soil displacement in a garden. Soon, Dolores was patrolling my street at dawn, snapping photos of my sunflowers with a camera flash bright enough to wake a coma patient. She started interrogating delivery drivers about my seed orders, claiming they were suspicious agricultural contraband. One driver told me she followed him in her Prius, honking and waving her handbook out the window. The complaints piled up like weeds in July. My raised beds were non-compliant structures. My marigolds were invasive. My compost bin was a public health hazard. She even accused me of running an illegal farmer's market because I gave Mr. Hensley a squash for free. Then came the megaphone incident. On a Tuesday, I got a certified letter embossed, naturally demanding I dismantle the garden within 72 hours or face enforced landscaping restoration. The letter listed 23 violations, including excessive biodiversity and unregulated vegetable distribution. She'd hired a botanist to analyze my soil pH and declared it subversive. I laughed so hard I spilled my kombucha. When I didn't comply, Dolores showed up with her megaphone and 3 Neighborhood Watch members in matching khaki vests, looking like they'd just escaped a safari-themed cult. One of them, Carl, was scribbling notes on a clipboard in green ink. He wrote, "Garden gate open at 2:48 p.m. I swear he timed it with a stopwatch. This garden predates your Neighborhood Watch by a decade," I told her, leaning on my shovel. "My aunt's zoning permit says I can grow whatever I want." Dolores adjusted her tracksuit and clicked her megaphone. "You're out of compliance, Clara. The county will back us. We have unanimous watch approval for emergency removal." Her handbook had color-coded tabs, blue for citations, orange for warnings, purple for what she called terminal infractions. My garden got the purple tab. Big mistake. Dolores, what she didn't know was that my aunt's property included a small lot across the street where Dolores had set up her prized rose garden. She leased that lot from me through a property management company. I'd inherited along with the house. I'd all but forgotten about it until I found the lease agreement in a dusty file cabinet, while Dolores ranted about my rogue eggplants. The company, Thorn Green Holdings, was just me with a P.O. box and a vague sense of responsibility. Dolores had been sending me rent checks for 2 years, never realizing Clara Thorne, her garden-growing nemesis, was also her landlord. The irony was so rich you could fertilize a field with it. The lease had a clause thank you. And Rosemary, you paranoid genius that allowed me to adjust the rent by up to 400% if the tenant engaged in disruptive conduct, including but not limited to harassment, false reporting, or unauthorized landscaping. I drafted a certified letter while Dolores stood on my lawn, megaphone still blaring. New rent, $3,200 a month, due in 5 days. I handed it to her mid-rant. Her megaphone squeaked as she fumbled it, her face turning the color of her prized hybrid tea roses. "This is outrageous," she shrieked. "You can't quadruple someone's rent. I can, when you trespass, file false complaints, and threaten my garden with a backhoe," I said, pointing to the lease clause, Section 8, Paragraph 3. "Read it and weep." Her eyes darted to the handbook, then back to me, like a squirrel caught in a sprinkler. "This is extortion," she yelled, waving the letter like a protest sign. "It's a lease adjustment," I replied, tossing a radish into my salad bowl. "You might want to check what you sign." Dolores held an emergency neighborhood watch meeting in her garage that night. I saw her PowerPoint slides glowing through the window bar graphs about my garden's threat to property values and a slide titled "Clara Thorne must be stopped." In Comic Sans, she served store-bought cookies, which Mr. Patel later told me were stale. "She's losing it," he said, sneaking me a zucchini from his plot. "But the watch voted to bulldoze your garden anyway, except I wasn't part of their jurisdiction." My aunt had ensured her property was exempt from neighborhood watch oversight, a detail I confirmed with the county zoning office and a lawyer friend over coffee the next morning. My land was a sanctuary of squash and freedom in a desert of regulations. Dolores's rose garden tenants to elderly sisters who loved my garden's free basil canceled their lease the next day, citing hostile landscaping disputes. They left a thank you note and a jar of homemade pesto on my porch before driving off in a minivan packed with houseplants. Dolores couldn't find new renters willing to pay the hike rent, and her check bounced harder than a rubber ball on concrete. I evicted her, following every legal step to the letter. She tried claiming the rose garden was a community asset. She tried claiming I'd forged the lease. She even brought a horticulturist to court to argue her roses were historically significant. The judge, sipping coffee from a mug that said "Plant Lady," wasn't buying it. Within 60 days, I'd reclaimed the lot and turned it into an extension of the community garden. Dubbed Dolores's downfall, I planted wildflowers where her roses once stood and hung a sign listing all 23 of her complaints. From excessive biodiversity to unapproved zucchini proliferation, the garden became a local legend. Neighbors posted selfies with the sign. At Dolores's downfall, got 5 stars on Yelp for vibrant vibes and the best tomatoes in town. The first review said, "Finally, a place where rogue eggplants are celebrated, not condemned." Dolores moved to a gated community downtown, where she's reportedly terrorizing the new neighborhood watch with her handbook. Some people never learn. My garden thrives, now with a butterfly sanctuary and a kid's pumpkin patch. The final court documents arrived 3 months later. Dolores owed me $9,600 in unpaid rent plus legal fees. The judge tacked on a $1,500 fine for abuse of neighborhood watch authority. When the bailiff read the verdict, Dolores clutched her handbook and muttered, "But I was just trying to keep the neighborhood beautiful."